Let's just take some time to first get connected with ourselves before we connect with each other, Tim. So I would just invite you to get comfortable in your chair, noticing if there are any areas of discomfort and thanking that part for letting you know and making whatever adjustments would help you to feel more comfortable as you begin to connect more fully with yourself. Getting your feet flat on the floor so that you can absorb the energy from the earth to help you to be more grounded. And sitting with dignity so that you can receive energy from the heavens to help you be inspired and lifted up. And inviting you now to tune into your breathing. Breathe in, filling your belly. Breathe in through your nostrils. Filling your belly. Holding it. And then pursing your lips and blowing out slowly. Allowing yourself to rest a moment. Then taking another nice deep inhale, breathing in through your nostrils, filling your belly. Holding it. Pursing your lips and blowing all the air out slowly. Letting your body relax. Let's do one more deep cleansing breath. Breathing in. Hold it. And blowing out. Letting your body relax. And imagining that there is a beam coming down from the heavens of positive, nurturing energy that flows down over your scalp and your forehead, flushing out tension, fatigue, toxic energy. And down over your face, your cheeks, your jaws, just letting those muscles relax. And that beam then going down over your neck, and especially over your shoulders, knowing that we shoulder a lot of tension in those muscles. Flushing out tension, fatigue, toxic energy. Right out through your arms and out through your fingertips into the universe that can absorb it. And then imagining that that energy beam flushes your back, goes down over your back and your chest, releasing the tension and the fatigue in all your muscles, your abdomen, your buttocks, your thighs, your calves, your feet, flushing toxic energy right out your toes, out into the universe. Freeing up space in your being for greater lightness and more connection to all of your resources, your capacity to be calm, your capacity to be aware, and the amazing miracle of just hearing my voice, that you can listen, hear it, and send messages to your body and to your mind. Your capacity for compassion, for curiosity, for courage, for perspective, for wisdom, for love, for acceptance, for all of these resources and so many more. What an amazing miracle that you carry within you all of those resources, and that they are brought together in a unique package that is called by your name. That is your treasure. And that they are there for you as you go through the challenges of life. And just noticing what feelings have been there for you recently, whether that's just today or this week or whatever comes up for you, noticing what you've been feeling. And be aware that your feelings are not you, nor are your thoughts. They're simply travelers passing through. And that when you can notice them, you can then accept them as not right or wrong, simply temporary feelings and thoughts that you can be in charge of. That you have the wonderful resource of choice and you can choose. Do I want to act on this in some way? Do I want to let it go? Do I want to express it? You are now the leader of your feelings. You are in charge of yourself. And that is a wonderful, wonderful resource. That you now have yourself that can lead you. And appreciating all of these resources, I invite you to take another deep breath in. And now allow yourself to become present and reconnect, making whatever movements or sounds feel good to you.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Thanks for doing that. Our topic, which is to talk about our experiences with Virginia Satir's work. And
Right.
maybe we can briefly introduce ourselves.
Sure.
And then I would like to sort of interview you about your experiences with Virginia's work, and maybe that's what we have time for today.
Okay.
So I'll introduce myself first. My
Sure.
name's Tim Sitt,
Mhm.
for those that are watching, and I'm a therapist, psychotherapist in private practice in Toronto, Canada, and I've been studying Virginia Satir's work since I was in grad school, so about 11 years now.
Mhm.
And I came across her work she wrote a brief foreword in a book, in a couples therapy book, and just the way she wrote and the way she expressed herself, I knew right away that there was something special about her way of thinking and her approach. And
Mhm.
I've been researching and doing trainings with a variety of people and I guess what would be considered the elders in the community.
Mhm.
And you've been a great mentor to me in the past almost year. So So that's a little bit about me, and I'm excited to start this video series or podcast with you where we can share about our experiences with Virginia's work. And yeah, so could you share a bit about you, Sharon?
Well, let's see. I have been practicing as a psychotherapist for 38 years now. I'm licensed as a clinical social worker, and I'm very proud of that because social work is where my heart is.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking in terms of how to help the world as best as I can, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've studied with Virginia Satir. I went through 2 of her process communities, and that was life-changing. And out of that, I've written 3 books on her work, and just recently created a Satir coaching and mentoring program that came out of I'm going to say, another program that I created for the general public with Margarita Suarez called Enriching Your Relationship with Yourself and Others. And so it's like an organic process of just what comes next kind of thing. It's
Right.
wonderful. Yeah.
Sharon, would you introduce the audience for those who may have never heard of who Virginia Satir was? She's passed away now, and I think she died in 1988, I believe,
Right.
at the age of 72. Could you, because you had personal experience with her, maybe just share about historically how she fits in the world of therapy and her contribution?
Sure. Virginia Satir was practicing as a social worker in a psychiatric hospital in Chicago, Illinois Psychiatric Hospital. And she was working with what at that time was called ambulatory schizophrenic young woman. And she was making quite great progress. And then the mother called and threatened to sue her with alienation of affection. And so instead of taking that threat, Virginia invited her to come in, and she started doing work with the 2 of them, and the mother and then the daughter started getting regressing. And so she decided, well, there's something going on here about the system. She began to think about systems, and she'd been taught psychoanalytic model. Individual family was kind of the enemy. Right. So then she works with them, and the daughter starts getting better again. And then the father, I think he either threatened a heart attack or suicide, something threatening. Yeah. So then she brought the father in, and again the daughter regressed, and she had to work with that family. And then finally she said, kind of jokingly, gee, is there anybody else in this family? And they said, yeah, our son. So then she said, well, bring him in. So she brings him in, and she goes, I have a picture of what's going on in this family. Are you interested? Which was a classic way for her to engage people's curiosity. They said yes. So she had the daughter go over and stand in the corner with her face toward the corner, and the son to get up on a chair, and the parents to get down in worshiping mode to the son.
As he was, yeah, the golden child.
He was the golden child, and that was the beginning of her concept of working with families, which was absolutely revolutionary at the time.
Yeah. Because everything at that time was one-on-one, right? Everything was individual therapy within the psychoanalytic model.
Yes.
So for her to do that actually went against a lot of the quote-unquote rules of practice in psychotherapy. So
absolutely. And but she was so successful that they started asking her to lecture to the psychiatric residents. And then they said, you need to put your material into a book. So the first book that was ever written on family therapy, as I understand it, was written by Virginia, called Conjoint Family Therapy. Yeah. And it's a very odd kind of a book. It's just a wealth of information, but it's very odd because it's written in the outline form in which she taught.
Right. In point form.
Yeah. So then she becomes more and more well known. And then the Mental Research Institute in Palo Alto asked her to come and be their clinical director. And from 1958 to 1968, she developed family therapy training for therapists there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She wasn't interested in the research part. She wanted to develop the training. And then she became more and more famous. Eventually, some people called her the mother of self-esteem. You know, one of the only woman pioneer in the family therapy field. Right. It was not an easy road for her. There was a point at which she presented, I think this was at the Evolution of Psychotherapy, and Salvador Minuchin said some very negative things about her, but she was too nurturing and not confrontive enough, because she came from an entirely different model. She was not looking for pathology, which the other models were, like what's wrong with this family system. She was looking for how she could enhance the sense of self, the self-worth of each individual, and enhance the communication between the members in order to heal the system. She was always looking for what are the resources that I can help enhance here, rather than where's the sickness. And so she got a lot of grief, and it was only after she died, sadly, that Salvador Minuchin made a huge announcement that he needed to apologize to Virginia, because in his older, when he got older, he began to see the wisdom of her capacity for compassion and empathy. But that's...
So maybe that's a good transition into, maybe we can discuss in our personal experience with Virginia's work in terms of what differentiated it, what made it special in comparison, one, not just the psychoanalytic models, but also what makes it unique within even the family therapy model. Because I think you've already kind of hinted at a few things, this emphasis on this core self, what Virginia, I know, called self-esteem. And I think later on we can sort of make distinctions of what that means, because self-esteem and her discussions around self-worth, it's not exactly in the way that the psychological literature uses those words. But could you maybe highlight a few things that stand out to you in terms of what, I mean, and also as a beginning therapist, or whenever you sort of came into contact with Virginia's work, what stood out to you as this is different, or there's something special about the way this woman works? What were those things for you?
Well, I went to a 4-day training with my first exposure to her was in Springfield, Illinois in 1979, and it was a 4-day workshop. And I had a master's degree, and I was used to being lectured to and taking down notes. And this was totally different. I mean, I was blown away. It was extremely experiential, extremely intimate in terms of the exercises we had to do, but also she modeled working with a single mother and 2 children.
Like she did a session, you mean?
She did
a live session
every morning that she did with the same family for 3 days in a row.
Okay.
Every morning. And that experience was in and of itself life-changing for me.
Yeah, and I think in terms of therapists, especially of that time, and certainly now, there's not a lot of therapists that demonstrate their work in front of live audiences or have done as much videotaping. So as someone that never had the opportunity to train with her directly, that work, the videotapes, being able to see her work is a treasure. And could you describe experientially what you use that word in your experience of her? What do you mean by that?
Well, the first exercise we had to do is we had to stand up and walk around and, find somebody that we didn't know. I didn't know anybody there, sit down with them and make eye contact with them for longer than's comfortable. And then, so she's already pushing your boundaries,
Right.
But then she said, okay, I'm going to ask you to imagine you're a camera, and you're going to close your eyelids, and then
Mm-hmm.
you are going to open them again and look at that person and see what stands out to them, to you physically. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then close your eyes and then check inside as to how that is for you. Do you have judgments about that? And how do you feel about your judgments? And then open your eyes again. Are there any stereotypes that you have that you're aware of as you look at this person? Close your eyes, go in and reflect on your judgments about that. Are there any way? Then open your eyes again, and are there any ways that you think of someone else? This person reminds you of somebody else.
Right.
Or is there any third-party information that you already have about this person? Again, close your eyes and reflect on the feelings you have about that.
Mm-hmm.
Then that part's over. Then you open your eyes and share whatever you're willing to share with your partner. I'd never done anything that intimate and personal in graduate school, believe me.
Yeah.
I was like, woo, But right away, you're getting into projections, you're getting into stereotypes, and you're getting into increasing your own capacity for awareness and reflection.
Yeah. And you use the word intimacy. I think just sitting with someone and looking at them is letting go of the patterns of behavior, like speech, right? Kind of engaging verbally, which you can easily get into a pattern or easily get into a defense.
Right.
But I think her structuring that exercise that way, it allowed you to, because I think the purpose of it is, how can you meet someone without acknowledging those projections in whatever form, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a memory, whether it's a story, some kind of association. But to feel that difference, I think, is structurally one of the unique things about, and one of the things I've appreciated about her when we're talking about experiential. It's, can you experience yourself in relationship to the experience you're having with this other person? And realize that the experience you're having may have little to do with the person that's sitting in front of you.
Absolutely.
And then what's that like? It's like, I didn't know that I used my consciousness, or I didn't use my mind or my eyes in that way. And to have an experience of that's not purely cognitive. It's not like I'm just analyzing or understanding something linearly or logically, but I'm feeling that from within my body, and experiencing, when I look at you, I see my mom, or when I see you, I see my brother. And okay, if that's what I'm doing, if that's what happens automatically, how much do I miss as a result?
Exactly. Yeah. Not only how much do I miss, but how much do I attribute to you that's not fair?
Right.
Yeah.
And I know some people in the Satir community, they would use the question like, what hat are you putting on me right now?
Right.
Is that something that Virginia said?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. In fact, if I remember correctly, in the book New People Making, she talks, when she's trying to teach families, she'll say, well, you got this hat on you for being a mother, you got this hat on you for being a wife, you got this hat on you for being a worker, and all these hats and all these roles, but also the projections. And she used to say, a little baby comes out and the family says, oh my God, he looks just like Uncle George. And she said, if Uncle George was stubborn, right away people can start putting on that kid Uncle George's hat, and see there, he was stubborn when he's just being a normal 2-year-old.
Right. Yeah. It starts getting boxed into that.
So it's a really, really good metaphor that speaks to, everyone, but it's a very important concept.
Good. Well, we've just got a few minutes till 3. How are you doing on time? Do you need to get going at 3 or what?
I need to leave in about 15 minutes.
15 minutes? Okay. So can we go a little bit deeper into, I think biographically for you, Sharon, what impact has Virginia's work had on your life personally and professionally?
I guess by looking at the way I live my life, it's huge. Because I spend every day trying to further Virginia's teachings.
Mm.
And when I went to the first training, I was terrified. I was one of 20 strangers, and we were going to be together for 30, what did I say, 20? 90.
90 people.
90 strangers, and we were going to be together for 30 days, and it was like therapy around the clock. You couldn't get away from yourself. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life.
Yeah.
And I made a decision on the way home that I would never do that again. And in 4 months, I'd signed up for the next summer because I got so much feedback from my clients saying something has changed. And I now believe it's all in the energy, that when you work things through, there's a different energy that's you emit, there's more harmony inside, you're more comfortable in your own being. And
would you feel comfortable to share because it sounded like a transformation for you in that first experience? 30 days is a long time.
30 days is a long time.
Could you describe that maybe more specifically? What did you experience, and how do you think that changed you? Yeah.
I've never been able to nail it all down because there's so many pieces to what she would do. I remember when I did the first training, that 4-day training with her, the first day she said, we're going to be weaving. And I had no idea what weaving meant, but that I now understand. She'd weave in this experience, and she'd weave in that experience, and she'd weave in this concept, and back and forth, integrating it so that it's, at some level, it's hard for me to kind of like piece out one thread.
Maybe that's a good transition into talking. Like, I think one of the things is we talk, in this introductory phase of what we're doing is outlining what stands out to us in Virginia's way of working. And we've talked about experiential. I think the other key ingredient is systemic.
Yes.
And when you use the image of weaving, I think of the word systemic, which means not to think about just, okay, if someone's dealing with a symptom like depression, what's the event A that led to B that then leads to C, but looking at it, I know an image that she liked to use a lot is the image of a mobile hanging over a baby's crib, and how multiple factors are at play. So when one piece is hanging down, that tips the other one up and then shifts all the other pieces. Right. And when you talk about weaving, there's layers and layers of things that are interlaced, that are affecting each other in innumerable ways that it's not so much tracking all of them. Like in a family of 4 or 5 people, there's dozens and dozens of different relationships and different triads and different pairings. But to appreciate that an effect on one level. So for example, that experience that you described with meeting someone, how does that affect not just your thinking, but how does that affect your feeling? How does that affect your beliefs? And so it's kind of the weaving inside of your experience. Right. And then how does that affect relationships within something like a family or an organization or something like that. So is there a way that you could speak to this idea or the theme of systemic in terms of what you brought back? So after the 30-day experience, how that may relate to a change that happened in you?
A couple things. First of all, I want to respond to the concept of systems, and that I think one of the most important things Virginia taught is that we have a kind of a strong need to decide that one person is at fault for this pain. Yeah. At a country level, at a world level. I see it every day in the news. Who's at fault here? Right. And to identify just one thing, because it simplifies it for us. Right. And that when she said, when you look at a system, the son is impacted by the father is impacted by the son. The mother is impacted by the relationship between the father and the son is impacted by the relationship between the mother and the father. It is extremely complex. And when you understand that you're treating the unit. You are not treating one individual who is the cause of all this pain. It's a big shift.
Yeah.
It's a really important shift. So having said that, in terms of what I brought back, looking back now, I suspect that probably the major thing that the process helped me do was to begin to express and to voice, because I grew up in a very loving family, but there were some very important rules: peace at any price, and that which meant you just learned to not voice anything. You didn't talk about feelings, you didn't talk about what you saw going on, you just were quiet. And so Virginia created in those classes a context where she created the safety and the encouragement for you to take risks of all kinds. And for me, that risk was voicing. So I think that, then that created more harmony inside, because I didn't have as much energy that was focused on suppressing everything.
Right.
Not feeling it and not talking about
it. Is a way of thinking about that, Sharon, the more honest expression of self, like the honest expression of the core self, rather than what do I need to do to maintain a balance in this family, to not rock the boat, not upset others, not upset mom or dad, and to kind of keep it's a regulation of emotion at the cost of honestly expressing yourself.
Exactly.
And what is the cost of that? And I think then it can manifest in all kinds of symptoms of mental illness.
Yes.
And I think that was a key discovery in terms of why family therapy was so powerful and useful.
Yes. One of the things that I'm aware of is that, I suffered with tremendous anxiety, and I don't anymore. And it's like, sometimes you have a headache and you go, oh, I don't have a headache anymore. And I've faced 2 cancer surgeries and all kinds of other things. And it just blows my mind that obsessive anxiety part went away.
Right. Because you gave yourself permission to feel what you're feeling.
But no, it wasn't conscious. It was just that she created the process where it could happen. She didn't tell you that, but she was always helping people break those core rules. About it's not okay to talk about what you see. It's not okay to feel. It's not okay to ask for what you want. It's not okay to take risks.
Yeah, and when you talk about the context and providing a context to experience it, I think that's very different than approaches that are maybe psychoeducational, an approach that focus mostly on what is the right information to share. Like, how do I, what's kind of the worksheet to kind of work through what is the belief or what's and so forth. But to take a risk and to say, what's going on in your heart? What's going on in your body right now? Because that's happening right now, and it's happening between you and I, or between you and your family, whoever's present or imagined, and how do you if I am there with you and inviting you to express that, to take a risk, and I'm facilitating that safe, nurturing space, which she emphasized so much, then you can come into a different experience of yourself. And if I do that only with one person in the family, and they go back to their family context where it's not safe to do that, and they have no idea about this idea of, having a space and a nurturing energy to invite the expression of that feeling or that thought, then it kind of goes back to that story which you shared with the schizophrenic, the daughter who's experiencing schizophrenia, and being one way with her mom, and then with her dad, and then with her brother. I think that's a major piece in terms of what I look at Virginia's work that was very unique. Okay, how do you think we're doing so far, Sharon?
Well, I'm really tickled because I've never voiced till you asked that question. What may have been among all the threads that were weaving what may have been the most important for me. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Good. Well, I've enjoyed hearing from you, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots more to hear about. But
Right.
why don't we pause there for today, and we
Right.
carry on the next time. So maybe we can thank the people, whoever is going to be watching this, for
Yes.
joining us. And so we'll look forward to having you join us for the next one.